what's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. Subscribe to Saturday Down South on YouTube. I am Connor O'Gara. Will, Sam Pittman, Dabo Swinney, who's more done right now between the two? There's one that I really don't wish he's done because obviously he's been very, very kind to us, and that person's not Dabo Swinney. But I understand totally why he's probably done. Sam Pittman done, Dabo Swinney not done, but very likely the end of any sort of credibility he has to say stuff like that and get people to buy into a lock of the league.
Right. I mean, yeah, it's like, which one do I feel bad for, right? Because listen, if you hear Dabo, he's had a couple of national titles. I don't know if you've talked to him lately, but he'll let you know that.
How many ACC championships has he won in the last 10 years, Will?
Him and Auburn, he actually discovered some national championships the other day that we hadn't heard about, so he had to let us know about those. No, but I think the answer is they're both equally ready to take them out of the air fryer, out of the crock pot, unfortunately, and I only feel bad about one of them.
Yeah, me too. By the way, we're going to get to that in a second here, plus all the action that we had in the SEC, the 3 power conference games, plus some early week 5 thoughts that we're going to get to at the end here. Before we get to everything, a quick word from our friends at Dabble. Guys, I've been talking about Dabble for a while now. It is one of the newest and best apps in the daily fantasy space. They've wasted no time making a name for themselves. The social function that Dabble has, it is second to none. They offer a wide variety of picks for making sports, including college football, NFL. If you're listening to this on Sunday and you're like, I'd love to get some afternoon action, Dabble is the place to do it. Use promo code SDS2 when you sign up today. Receive $25 in bonus cash. No deposit required. Again, that is promo code SDS2 for $25 in bonus cash, courtesy of the good folks at Dabble. Let's talk Sam Pittman first. Yes, we will get to the Auburn-Oklahoma game, a game in which refs are, let's just say, not being spoken of kindly in the hours after that game. But
I'll say it like this as a table setter. We've had a couple of weeks of most beautiful, enjoyable football in the SEC. We had to have a weekend that was a little bit of a dud. Of course, it had to be my birthday. And we're opening with one of our favorite coaches and one of the happiest games of the year being one of the ugliest games of the year. I think that's a good way to start us off for today.
Yeah, we got to talk about this Sam Pittman stuff. And by the way, we're recording this at 11:50 a.m. Eastern time. Obviously, if there's something that happens, hopefully we won't cold take ourselves. I don't really know at this point what the course of action is going to be for Hunter Yurachek, other than realizing this is the end. That's the type of loss, blowing an 18-point lead to Memphis, that you just can't stomach when you're on the hot seat. And when you realize that it's the biggest blown lead by anybody in college football this year, it's even tougher. It's so much worse that it's a place that Arkansas usually dominates in, Memphis. Like, they were 6-0 all time, I think, as well.
Most SEC teams should dominate there.
All due respect to Memphis, great program that Ryan Silverfield has been able to build. And I've been kind of a Memphis stan for a long time, just because I've been doing regular radio with my guys, Greg Gass and Eli Savoy, for 7 years now in Memphis. And I've developed an appreciation for that team. It's still the type of loss you just can't lose if you're in that spot. And Arkansas fans, you know all this stuff very well at this point. 2-10 in one-score games since the start of 2023. That's what Sam Pittman is. 4-14 in those games since the start of 2022, which is really when all of this kind of got away from Sam Pittman. It's 32-33 overall. Hunter Yurachek has talked about the desire to take away year one when it came to that incentive-based buyout. If you remember all of that, and how it was going to be 50% if his record was below 500, and it was going to be 75%. None of that really matters at this stage of the game, because you see this team that's still experiencing stuff that you just can't at this point in year 6. And when you see the remaining schedule of 7 of 8 teams being ranked, including Notre Dame, with Jeremiah Love coming in to face an Arkansas defense that just allowed 290 on the ground to Memphis. Let's just say we love Sam Pittman. He's been so good to us. Even the biggest Pittman apologists can't defend it anymore. And it feels like something that is run its course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just as we've kind of seen, your identity is your identity at the end of the day. Even if it isn't what you mean for it to be, the person that you are and the coach that you are often comes out in the aggregate, in the wash. And we saw that in this game from Sam Pittman. We saw some of the beautiful passes by Taylor Green. We saw the yards of total offense, but we also saw the turnovers.
The four local quarterback strikes again, Will.
Exactly, the four loco quarterback, and it was maybe even mixed with something. We saw that insane fumble at the end of the game. There was just so many chances of like, wow, this is going to be a hard fought lesson for your team, Sam. Like you're going to take him back to the locker room, say, all right, boys, like we got lucky today. Let's not do that again. No, no. At the end of that game, it was kind of almost like a ball don't lie. Shout out Rasheed Wallace, where it's like you played with fire this whole game. You played sloppy. You refused to not just put this team away, but really control this game and let them know you're the better team. And I'm not going to say it was arrogance. It was almost just a little bit of playing with your food. And you look up at the end of the game and go, oh, this one's over. There's nothing they could do after that fumble.
I couldn't believe that fumble happened. I don't think Joe Test could believe it because Lord knows if he had spotted that in real time, he would have flipped out. And it took a while to process. Wait a minute, this isn't actually going to happen. In hindsight's 2020, when you're down one deep in Memphis territory, you feel like okay, I could just kick a field goal, win the game, run the clock out. There's a lot of NFL teams that probably would have done that in that spot. And also at the same time, you've got a freshman kicker, albeit a decorated one. And if you miss that kick, then you're like, why didn't you just run the football in? You're Arkansas. Take care of the ground game. This is what you're supposed to be able to do. But just inexplicable mistakes. I mean, the Taylor Green sack that he took that just drove him out of field goal range, just so bad. Like so many different moments at the end of this game that just felt like Arkansas wanted to give it away. And a week removed from fumbling to be able to blow a chance for a go-ahead touchdown, you just the mistakes late in game. At some point, it stops becoming a coincidence and it starts becoming just this inevitable reality. And that happened a while ago for Sam Pittman. And there are people that'll say should have been fired after year 4. The job that he did to rebuild this program post Chad Morris is basically why he was able to get to this point. And I don't say that lightly. I do think getting to 6 years in the SEC is a feat. People will look at that and say that's a participation trophy, but it's okay to also admit sometimes that things have played out and it's time to be able to move on. When your rock, your star, Taylor Green, who if he plays the second half the way he played the first half, I'm probably saying, guys, I don't know if there's 10 quarterbacks in college football better than Taylor Green. But the way that it played out down the stretch, you're just like, man, this is the same old stuff. You just can't get out of your own way. And when you can't do that, it's probably at some point, it's an indictment on the head coach.
Yeah, for sure. I think too, I was showing my friends that were over for my birthday, like, hey guys, like Taylor Green might be the best quarterback in the SEC. Like look at him play, like look at the touch he has in these passes, like he has, the ability to do all this stuff. And it's just so poetic, right? Where in the second half, the offense is loud, for lack of a better term. Every play is a little bit too up and down. We're starting to do too much with the four loco. And we think, hey, let's give the ball to Mike Washington Jr. And down the stretch, every carry from Mike Washington Jr., money. 8 yards, 9 yards, 12 yards, boom,
He just
boom,
will
boom.
start too.
Oh my gosh. Like we finally figured it out. This is the guy that's going to lead us to the promised land. Taylor Green maybe doesn't have it right now. We're going to finally hand the ball off. And again, so poetic that you give it to this guy who comes out to kind of take the air out of the ball and just strange fumble. So yeah, it's just like you said, it's a metaphor for Sam Pittman where you finally find a rock in the storm and it just gets washed away and it's more chaos.
We've been talking about Arkansas candidates for 2 years now, so might as well throw a few of them out there once again, just in the very likely scenario that there will be an Arkansas coaching search at some point in 2025. The guy on the other sideline, Ryan Silverfield, who's just done a masterful job taking over from Mike Norvell at Memphis. Also a year 6 coach, by the way. And all Memphis does is just win a bunch of games every single year. I think he has to get a look in this situation. I think our friend Alex Golish needs to get a look. John Sumrall, who's getting people like Lane Kiffin to come out and say, I think he's getting an SEC job. I'd love to know which SEC job Lane Kiffin thinks he's getting, considering Lane has already faced the likes of Sam Pittman and Mark Stoops this year. Jeff Traylor at UTSA, who he and GJ Kinney probably going to be candidates, even though they're kind of both a little bit part of the Chad Morris era at Arkansas. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. But Robert Patrick.
That works for everyone, right? I think everyone in college football could just pretend fast forward through that sim game.
You know how Dwight begs for an interview to get the regional manager job to take over from Michael, and then he accidentally shoots his gun off.
Yes, I sure do.
Whenever I think of Bobby Petrino sitting down for a potential interview with Hunter Yurachek, that's all I can picture.
That's a good point. It's like, all right, so where were you from the year? You know what? Don't worry about that. We're just going to talk about the present, the now.
Rootin' tootin'. No. I maybe he's gonna get the interim job if there is a firing midseason. I don't know. I kind of think there's a little bit more incentive to make these guys their own interim coaches. Wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas made this a 2021 Ed Ogeron situation where he gets to be his own interim coach. It's understood that he's gone. They announce it. Who knows? Who knows? But the funniest thing would be Jimbo, because he is the John Calipari of college football. And what did
Yep.
Arkansas do last year? They got John Calipari to Fayetteville. So
Yep.
that would just be worlds colliding in a lot of different ways. Would love to see those two sit down and have a conversation. I don't think that'll happen. I also don't think John Gruden will happen. We've already laid
Yeah,
that
I mean,
out.
it's fascinating though. There is no, I'm not going to say Arkansas is not aware of its reality. I think Arkansas wakes up and creates its reality every single day, right? With Hunter Yurachek, it's like, who would have thought they could have landed Calipari? So at the end of the day, Arkansas has a unique mix of stuff going on. Not a great recruiting ground, obviously, but like kind of the only game in town as far as an in-state school. Big fan base. There have been times where for football, for basketball, we have seen them be a dominant program. But in the modern era, it's kind of been hit or miss. And it's kind of funny because we've seen athletic directors make plays where they're kind of in over their skis. They think they're a bigger deal than they are. Feels like Hunter Yurachek has kind of had a pretty good pulse for, actually, I can swing and get this guy, and that might fit for us. I mean, Pittman was a fine enough hire considering what he was able to do while he was there. I think maybe when it's time to fire a coach similar to Coach O, you think of all the bad things he's done. But I think that Pittman brought some good times to Arkansas, and I think especially coming out of the, again, earmuffs, Chad Morris era, now you have a reset. And I think Sam Pittman was clearly a reset. And now it's like, let's go hire a quote unquote serious coach. He might have just lasted longer than a lot of people thought.
Well, that's the part that I try and totally get into the mindset of a fan, how they're approaching this, and that's the part where I feel most disconnected to Arkansas fans, because I remember how bad the Chad Morris ending was. The Ty Story Western Kentucky game, which we're going to talk about the Jackson Arnold reunion game in a second here, but that just a historically bad reunion game
Oh,
for
yes.
Arkansas, and it's the final game of the Chad Morris era, however brief it was. And there are people that still think that Arkansas right now, where it's at, anytime it loses a game like this, and I shouldn't say game like this as if this loss is the same as all the other devastating losses of the last 2-3 years, but there are people that still say, well, this is the same as the Chad Morris era all over again. And I just don't think that's the case. I truly don't. And I don't think you can say that when you're coming off of a 7-win season wherein you beat a top 5 playoff bound Tennessee team. Like, I just don't think you can say those two things. And I think people that do that forget just how bad it was. It doesn't mean that it's great right now. And you obviously can't have half of your roster getting turned over on a yearly basis in the portal. And that's a big problem of why this Pittman era, even with the coordinator continuity, even with Taylor Green coming back, that's why this whole thing is so volatile week to week. But yeah, I'll always disagree on that. Even if this turns out to be a 4-8 season, I won't say that this is the same as what happened during the end of the Chad Morris era.
I fully agree. And like we talked about, it's internal perception versus reality. It's like you can say mentally that we should be where, I don't know, even like Auburn is. But in reality, you had Chad Morris. So we can't take that off the board and pretend like, oh, well, smoke and mirrors, like don't look at the thing behind the curtain. It's like, well, okay, you could talk about your perception. You could talk about what you grew up with. We could talk about Ryan Mallett, all that different stuff. But at the end of the day,
RIP.
and we were all right. And we were all there for that. Like those were great Arkansas teams, but we can't pretend like that it wasn't 15 years ago. And at the end of the day, you do have to trust your AD because he's made a couple of these hires that are program changing. So yeah, like I said, man, this is really like the most chaotic sky is the limit. Again, this is a team that had Taylor Green, Bobby Petrino. Like every move Arkansas has made has just been so volatile. They could hire, I don't know, again, maybe not John Gruden, but a step under that, or some young guy that like kind of like you talked about that could be a great fundamental hire. It could be anywhere on this board.
Coaching matters. And there are a lot of places right now in college football wherein that's just so evident, and you're seeing some of these changes early on. So again, this is not official. That just felt like the end. It felt like there's no turning back now type of loss. So obviously we will update if this becomes official. Okay, well,
And
let's
really
talk
quick
about
on that too. This is honestly this is not copium. This is kind of the best case scenario because it's like if you're going through like a breakup and you know it's going to end, but you don't know how, and then something crazy happens. It's like
nah.
now I can always look back at this and say this was the moment that I knew I was out. Same deal here. It's like well, we lost to Memphis. Like this is it. We need to start moving forward. Versus like we're getting
You're
close.
right,
We had a
because
close loss. Da-da-da.
if they had won 7 games this year, there would have been a lot of people like, "Oh, I'm frustrated that it's still going to be another year." And
Exactly.
yeah, you're right. From that standpoint, that's probably the silver lining.
And the
Okay,
portal stuff is a big deal where it's like talking about a year in the future. We're not really
yeah.
building anything for the future. So this is a blessing in disguise, honestly. And I say that not kidding. Rip the band-aid off, start over, move on.
All right, Auburn, Oklahoma. We are going to get to the officiating, Auburn fans. I promise you. Like we will not forget that. We trust me. We will get there. Okay. It was bad. It was really really bad. The 4 biggest plays of this game went against you, and we are acknowledging that. We are not the type of podcast that just sits here and blasts officials, even though there are a lot of other places that do that. And I think it's really lazy and it just overlooks what actually happened in this game. It was massive in this game. We will get to this
I saw
as
my
it
New
stands.
Orleans Saints shirt like calling to me like talk about the officials. It's all the officials' fault.
Just an easier thing to do, isn't it? Got to put blame on someone. As it stands, Brent Venables wins the breakup game. A program record 10 sacks he had against Jackson Arnold, including the sack for the safety and the cover. Safety for the cover is wild. Does not happen like that a whole lot. To be able to clinch that program record, R. Mason Thomas, who was suspended for the first half of this game, came out just like a bat out of hell playing in this one. Like basically bookended the his time in the second half with sacks. He was awesome.
Really
He
quick,
was
Connor, have you
everywhere.
heard my thing about you got to be scared of guys with old man names? R. Mason
Our Mason
Thomas isn't.
Thomas, yeah.
That's an old man name, or R. Mason Thomas was in church worshiping R. Mason Thomas. I got something to say. Anyway,
It's a good name. It really is. And a name that should have been on preseason first team all SEC ballots everywhere and somehow wasn't.
yep.
But I digress. This defense is awesome. It's really, really good. Auburn's offensive line was so overmatched. That happened. I mean, at one point, Connor Lew, the starting center for Auburn, who's their best offensive lineman, he leaves this game and they bring in a guy who is the youngest player in FBS. You think Ryan Williams was young last year. This guy is 17 years old and he won't turn 18 until next April, which is almost impossible to be able to do that. Connor Lew came back into this game, but it was bad. It was
This
so
was a
bad
dire
for
game,
Auburn.
and it felt like the facts we were getting made it worse. Like we talked about, like the Alex McPherson stuff. Not going to get into that too deep, but they did the same thing with the backup, where they're like, "This guy, he can't even drive. What's he doing out there?" And it felt
Rough.
like every little piece of information you got just made this feel like the Roman Coliseum.
Yeah, and Brent Venables is over there just licking his lips at every possible pressure package that was dialed
The
up.
Grinch smile, it was there. Every cut to Brent
Oh,
Venables, this wry smile, like you're fighting Skeletor in a sandstorm.
I don't blame him. And at this point, he's got to feel pretty good about these types of matchups because each of the last 3 times that a ranked team came into Norman, Oklahoma held it to less than 20 points. That includes last year against Alabama, of course. Brent Venables had to have it. He just had to have it. And I know we talked about this a lot, and we talked about this and how important it was for him to not be able to have this, oh man, I just couldn't find the answers late type of performance. You just couldn't have the alternative of a new and improved Jackson Arnold coming into your building in that hostile atmosphere, which included F Jackson Arnold chants, even a little pregame jawing from Jackson Arnold, kind of going back at the Oklahoma crowd, which interesting the cameras picked up on that, but he could say all he wants, and he wasn't even available for media this week. All parties can say all that they want. Like, this is just another game. It was not. Okay. We
Connor, did
acknowledge
you hear
this
what
was
he
not.
said as he left the stadium?
I did not hear what he said.
All-time move for him. Got to give the kid credit. Somebody's heckling him as he walks out, like Auburn media, whatever is following. Maybe it's Oklahoma media is following him, and he's being really respectful. He's smiling, whatever. This guy keeps heckling him, heckling him. Looks up at it 2 seconds, goes, "You wish you were me," and just kept walking. That was
Okay.
fire. That was
Okay.
fire. I got to give the kid credit there.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to be honest. He has a good life. He's set up really well. 7 figures in NIL earnings, all those things. I did not want to step into his shoes against that Oklahoma defense on Saturday. I'll say that.
True.
It seemed not great. Huge win for Venables because his defense is just everything he hoped it would be in year 4. And if you want to say there was an issue, Cam Coleman on true freshman corner, Cortland Guillory, a guy that we talked about in the preview, who's been really good so far. that was like their weakness. They're getting healthier in the secondary. Hopefully, a full Eli Bowen very, very soon here. But like that was the matchup that Auburn saw and exploited. And Cam Coleman was tremendous in this game. If you doubted his abilities whatsoever, I hope you watched the things he did, even on that touchdown where there's like, hey, we have Cam Coleman, you don't. We're gonna win this touchdown. Jackson Arnold had a coming of age drive and was, I thought, pretty poised in this game, despite the fact that he took 10 sacks. Okay. He took too many sacks, obviously. And some of those, I'll be interested to see kind of if they change some of the rulings on that. They were talking about in the broadcast about how if he starts to take off and run and he still gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage, it's not supposed to count as a sack. So maybe there's some interpretation there. Nonetheless, if you had told anyone before this game, Will, that Jackson Arnold would begin the fourth quarter by leading a 14 play, 75-yard drive to take the lead, they would have said, whoa, that is no small feat. Okay. So if we could just pause in a moment like that and appreciate, that was the moment in which I said, this game freaking rules. The officiating sucks, but this game rules. And I'm glad that it's playing out this sort of way. That, from that standpoint, that was fun. That lived up to the billing. And I give Jackson Arnold so much credit because obviously it didn't work out his way. He doesn't get to say, I won the breakup with Brent Venables in Oklahoma. But still, for him to have that moment, I do wonder about the long-term benefits of what that did for him. And if, everybody's talking about whether or not Arch Manning got his swagger back, maybe Jackson Arnold got his swagger back in this game with the types of plays that he was making. The 4th and 11 run that he had on that drive, just big time. Like I think Auburn should be encouraged about their team, with the exception of their offensive line. I think there are a lot of other elements of this team that I came away from being like, Auburn's a much better team than last year.
Yeah.
Is that a fair takeaway?
I think so. I mean, sometimes as a fan, or as we do, it's like you want there to be this clear, okay, hero, villain, winner, loser, bad game plan, good game plan. In this game, given all the fishing stuff, which we'll get to, given the environment, given all the pressure, I'm with you. I think that Jackson Arnold made a really big statement in a loss, but it's not that he's the next Joe Burrow. It's not that he's this perfect, complete passer. It's that he's still a work in progress, but he is progressing. And I think that's, as an Auburn fan, what you're hoping to see here.
I agree with that. If Auburn gets a defensive stand late, what are we saying about Jackson Arnold right now? Like the biggest "how do you like me now" win that a player would have had this season would have belonged to Jackson Arnold in that building. And also, yes, this is the part Auburn fans have been waiting for. Perhaps Auburn is one properly called play away from wiping away an Oklahoma touchdown and having a different ball game. Let's discuss this. The play that has made the rounds across the internet, the missed Isaiah Satania touchdown, miscalled Isaiah Satania touchdown. And we know that because the SEC literally came out on Saturday night and said, yep, we beefed up. We made a mistake. This should not have counted. In case you missed it or don't know what I'm talking about, Isaiah Satania, the Oklahoma receiver, looks like he is trotting off the field during this potential substitution period. He instead lines up about an arm's length from Oklahoma's sideline. Auburn doesn't cover him. Hugh Freeze said afterwards that he was calling for a timeout. I don't necessarily think that was the case, but he definitely argued that it shouldn't have counted. Whatever, Hugh Freeze is not the culprit in all of this. But John Mateer sees it, touchdown. First touchdown of the game to take a 10-3 lead. The way that Oklahoma OC Ben Arbuckle, who just turned 30 years old last week, the way that he reacted and celebrated, which included a little bird that he showed to the sideline or something. I was surprised that the ABC cameras caught that. Was surprised that the ABC cameras had audio on the F. Jackson Arnold chants.
This isn't your daddy's CBS crew. Look, Vern and Gary are clutching their pearls right now.
That was an interesting production decision to have that. But yeah, the way that it happened and the way that he looked made it seem like that was a trick play and like he pulled something over. And after the game, he's like, "Oh no, we weren't trying to deceive or do anything like that." He made sure that he was eligible and that all these things. Of course, he's going to say that. What do you expect him to say? Oh yeah, we cheated, got away with it. Sucks to suck. No. Oakland fans, I get it. It wasn't called. You get the benefit of that, but they knew what they were doing. You can't convince me otherwise. They knew exactly what they were doing in this moment. And Arbuckle, like, you got away with this play, but I do believe it was a play to deceive. It absolutely was. And the SEC acknowledged you're not allowed to do that. This should have been a 15-yard penalty for unsportsmanlike conduct. Under the unfair tactics rule, Oklahoma used a hideout tactic that deceived the opponent. It is essentially like a balk in baseball. That's the best comparison that I can make for this and why you're not allowed to do this. Otherwise, everybody would do that left and right. And you have to allow for fair substitution, all that stuff. It sucks. It sucks that it played out this way. And Will, I don't know if watching this in real time, you had the same thought. I couldn't believe I said, wow, this is just classic Auburn. Left a guy wide open. Of course, this is why Auburn can't have nice things. They're playing really competitive to start off. And then they make a mistake like that. This will be one of the things that comes back to bite them. And then by the time you look at that replay and you realize what had just transpired, and then you hear Matt Austin, the rules official, come in and say, I would have whistled this stat, I would have penalized this play, which actually probably would have wiped Oklahoma out of field goal range even. That sucks. And that can't happen. That can't happen in a premier game on that stage. And I hate just saying officials be better because that's too preachy, whatever. This sucked. And I hate that this game had such a huge play like that play out the way that it did.
So before I kind of get started on my role here, just give me like a percentage, like percentage wise, how, like this result, do you think this was Oklahoma's intended result on this play?
Yes. I 100% do. And they got away with it. When Hugh Freeze said afterwards, they were told all offseason, watch out for the hideout tactics and all this, because the way that teams substitute now, especially with the way that teams like to incorporate tempo, which Oklahoma's doing some of that as well, it's just something that you're told you have to be able to watch out for. And I feel for Auburn fans watching that play out and just being on the wrong end of it. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal.
You know, this just goes to show the dangers of what they call fire hosing in our modern, political news ecosystem, which is we said all offseason talking about Texas's concerns. Oh, horns down, moving the front of the defensive alignment. Texas hates moving the front of the defensive alignment. Meanwhile, Oklahoma is off to the side, developing weapons of mass destruction. We have no idea. And for that reason, okay, part of my brain, the gamesmanship part of my brain, the rubbin is racing part of my brain says, you know what? I got to tip my cap to this because if you can get away with it, it's fair. Again, that's why I make the point about Texas, where everybody is so, oh my God, we got to officiate this right. We're going to have conferences on this. If you can find a way to exploit the rule book, that's how Bill Belichick made a 20-year NFL career here. And you want to have that guy on your side. You want to have Ben Arbuckle. You want to have the guy who's pushing the boundaries. And honestly, going back to the Saints, Sean Payton trying the onside kick to start the second half of the Super Bowl. You want the guy who has the boldness and the confidence in his own team to try that in the big moment. But if you're Auburn, none of that matters because you only see this as, hey, we have been in this conference forever. We've seen a billion football games. We've never seen this. This shouldn't determine. It's very similar to like when people talk about the tush push. It's like, is this even football? This doesn't determine who the best team is. So I really do see both sides of it here. If it happens for your team, you think you're a genius. If it happens for the other team, you think that they couldn't beat us fairly. And if you're Auburn, the feeling in the pit of your stomach after this game is they felt like they couldn't beat us fairly, and I think it's very, very valid.
I think all that's fair. Oklahoma fans, like, you don't have to defend this. Like you benefited from a play that should not have happened. This is sometimes that happens in football, and the history books maybe they'll remember it, maybe they won't. I just hate that it played out the way that it did because it was just such an awesome football game. And the other crappy thing for Auburn, Will, the difference in perhaps winning and losing that game long term, that could be monumental for Hugh Freeze. And the difference between 7-5, 8-4, I don't know, but I don't know that that you can just look at that play and definitively say if it's called properly, Oklahoma loses, Auburn wins. So I'm not saying that. Oklahoma did so many things to be able to win this game. And even when it wasn't benefiting from some of those officiating things, the called back touchdown return that Auburn looked like it had on the fumble that Hugh Freeze definitely did not agree with. I think Isaiah Satania actually did catch the football, even though after the way that the Barryon Brown, Nick Harbor catches were overturned. I don't know what a catch is. Nobody knows what a catch is. The DPI was so egregious, the missed DPI on the little trick play to Cam Coleman where he's targeted. And I had two theories on that where I think it was too good of a trick play that the back judge was fooled too much by it and he was out of position. He's like backpedaling and he can't even look at DPI. And that was a problem. And then Cam Coleman didn't argue for DPI, which, come
Your
on,
team's got
man.
to be softer. That's the problem, is that you have to act like a war crime, which is just gonna,
Right?
you got to watch soccer and be like, start
Yes.
grabbing your leg to where they're like, he's trying to slow the game down.
Yeah, and Auburn ends up scoring a touchdown on that drive, so it doesn't end up mattering in the same way that
That's the
it
beautiful
could
part of
have.
this is Auburn did end up like, you'd almost rather have it fairly. So like for momentum and all that, that ended up kind of working. But again, a source of frustration for sure.
Yeah, and Auburn fans, you just have every right to come away from that feeling frustrated, knowing that you've struggled in these close games. It's a brutal pill for Hugh Freeze to swallow. He is now 2-7 in games decided by one score. That's one of them, and that's a massive, massive bummer. So all those things, I think, are fair to outline in a game like this. Again, we are not blame the officials. It's corrupt. Just a poorly officiating game in which officiating let this game down. That's simply what this comes down to, and hopefully we're not going to have pivotal games like that moving forward where we feel the need to talk like that. But let's shift back to Oklahoma for a second, Will. I think OU will take great satisfaction in starting 1-0 in conference play, very likely being 5-0 heading into Red River. They're going to beat Kent State. Like, I'll go out and say that right now. Maybe the first top 10 matchup in Red River since 2008. That would include Texas. Texas would have to win at Florida, which Florida, woof. But
Hey, a battle of two preseason Heisman hopefuls. Look at this.
yeah, speaking of Heisman hopeful, John Mateer is your new leader in the Heisman race. The Mateer vibes are going to be great these next few weeks, and he's essentially going into that game either leading the Heisman odds or very close to it, and is going to be considered the more accomplished quarterback than Arch Manning, which huge win for Oklahoma. That in itself, big time stuff. Total 180 from last year, where obviously Arnold gets benched in this game, the SEC opener in week 4 against Tennessee, and then soon you realized the disarray was in full effect. Like, these are all good things, especially with this defense. If I were to nitpick Oklahoma, because there might be some who look at Oklahoma and what it has done so far with wins now against Michigan and Auburn, with 2 wins against AP top 25 teams, they might look at this Oklahoma team and say, that's a 10-2 team. Maybe if Mateer elevates his game to another level, it's 11-1. I'm not there. And if I'm going to provide those reasons and nitpick an accomplished team with playoff upside, I think it's pretty clear that they've struggled with the non-Mateer rushing options. 37 sack-adjusted rushing yards that they had. The running backs in this game, 12 carries, 13 yards. Auburn's defensive line, really good. Underrated, slept on, needs to be talked about more. But that's going to hurt you, especially knowing that 6 of the final 7 opponents have already spent time in the top 15, and the one who hasn't is Mizzou, who's likely going to be there soon.
Can't count
So
them out. Yeah.
again, that's nitpicking. And this is an ideal start for Oklahoma. And it's an ideal start for Brent Venables. Those are all good things. Gritty, hard fought win that had the defense feasting on a little home cooking, maybe. Just maybe.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about kind of, what this team could be. Why am I blanking? Oh, Max Duggan. We talked about how Mateer could
If
be
Mateer could be Duggan.
that
Yeah.
that Mateer could be the Max Duggan of Oklahoma. And this just feels like one of those games where it's like somehow they find a way, somehow. And again, like, couldn't be more impressed with what Oklahoma's brought to the SEC. We've brought in 10 sacks, so we could jump up and down and say maybe it was 8. 8 is still an amazing number, right? Whatever the number was, we got to just, because you're right. In a game like that, things are moving so quickly, and the officials, I'm sure, had a lot of homework to do after that game. Regardless, whatever the final number, gets recorded to, great defense, gritty quarterback play, inventing the SEC rule book. These are things that we usually respect. Auburn's done a little bit of that too over the years, right? So I think that they really do belong in this conference. I feel like this has been a year that shows that, as far as, the home environment is great. They're going to be able to do some of the things. I have confidence that Oklahoma and Brent Venables has an identity. Right. This is a team with a finite identity. To your point, it's not running the football. It's surviving on offense right now, putting everything on John Mateer, allowing him to make, great decisions. He's going to have some throws that he wishes he had back. He's got some fumbles. He's going to have some of that stuff. But I think that they play so hard and they're so gritty that you don't want to be in a fight that lasts to the last round with this Oklahoma team, because they feel like they're going to come out on top.
They really do. I do find myself wishing that John Mateer had an alien to throw to, like Cam Coleman. I do, like, and I know that the offense, it's better. I love seeing Deion Burks healthy, great player, and clearly he's relied on a lot, understandably so. in this offense. I do wish that they had that go up and get it type of guy. Like just a guy that can make a defense look so bad. And Satania made some big time plays in this one. Kanik, the tight end, has been awesome. He's been a revelation for him so far this year. And Torrey Blaylock has been mostly good in the backfield, but it's a team that's still working through some things. But you'd rather be working through some things at 4-0. And that's the good news for Oklahoma. And you survived. You were on the right side of this. Maybe ball don't lie is going to play out later in the year, and Oklahoma's going to be on the other side of officiating gaffes. That's usually the way that these things work. It doesn't make it sting any less for Auburn fans, and I don't blame them for being really frustrated with the way this played out.
Yes, and well, two things on that really quick. What do you think about the fumble catch, all that? I feel like we probably need to talk about that a little bit.
Nobody knows what a catch is.
Yep.
Nobody knows. I can sit here and say that's a catch. He made a football move. I have no idea. I have seen so many different interpretations of this. Bear Felica tweeted at me like right afterwards. Wait, wasn't it literally the exact same play that we saw play out with LSU and Clemson with Barryon Brown and then the Nick Harbor thing? Because that I'm talking about the Satania one on the sideline that set up Oklahoma's go-ahead touchdown, wherein John Mateer showed that shiftiness as a runner, gets into the end zone 10 consecutive games with a passing touchdown and a rushing touchdown, both of which kind of had a little bit of controversy to lead up to it. But I don't know what a catch is. And anytime this is reviewed, it's just like targeting, Will. It's just going to be in the eye of the beholder. I'm going to have no way to feel confidently about it. The only thing that I did feel confidently about by the end of that game was it was going to go against Auburn and it was going to go for Oklahoma.
And you know what? You're right. We're finding a trend line. That's exactly how it felt. And I'll say this too. I think we like to think that refs are like these androids that get like kind of activated for the game and they go back to sleep. There are, memos and like they have internal communications. They have meetings as far as the different refs on the different conference. And I really do want to take this back to the LSU game in week 1 because the Bauer Sharp fumble was so similar to this exact situation where it goes, this could be anything from an incomplete pass to a devastating fumble return, and we're going to need to pick it in the middle. And for LSU, that went the other way, right? It was ruled to be a fumble. It was ruled to be Clemson football. Same thing with the Barryon Brown play. It was ruled to be incomplete. It was ruled to be not a touchdown. Well, both of those plays went the other direction this play. Yeah. And I'm here to tell you, unfortunately, I think that was because of a meeting or a memo that came out because these things don't happen in a vacuum. Referees talk to each other and they have conversations about things. And I think that's actually the machine, the ref AI learning. So now if we go the other way, now we can be frustrated. But I think there was some learning that happened where it says, hey, because my take on the Bauer Sharp thing was that it wasn't a catch. And at least it was officiated that way in this game. So if we could find inconsistency, that's where I have the biggest thing with referees. It looks like learning happened. Because in my mind, I always thought that the have to survive the ground catch rule was very stupid and that it came from the NFL. Anything that comes from the NFL, I'm immediately suspicious of. But you guys remember like the Des Bryant era where like you had to like duct tape the football to your hand and have it like one hand.
Calvin Johnson against the Bears in the season opener.
Yes.
That play went my team's way. And I very much felt like, yes, the Bears caught a massive break because what do you have to do after these plays? And the one that gets overturned early where it looks like Auburn has returned for a touchdown. In real time, I thought ground caused the fumble. And then they show the replay and it's like the ball's kind of moving a little bit, but I don't know. And I don't know what they're going to think and how they're going to interpret that. A football move we have not figured out what a football move is. So let's just throw that out and start over. Let's just go off vibes and how we feel in the moment. That's really the only way that we could probably get to the bottom of what a catch is because week to week, just no clue.
We got to just put the receiver on the stand because receiver mentality. Be like, hey,
you got it.
We got to get the receiver to admit they didn't catch it. And if we could do that, I think it's fine. No, but point being,
how about just how do the receivers react to it in real time? That's usually the best indication. If they react like, oh my God, I just fumbled that, and they're chasing the guy who recovered the fumble.
Yep.
Just roll with it, officials. If they're saying clear, like if they're celebrating a touchdown because they took 4 steps afterwards and then the DB hit it out of their hand as they're about to start their celebration, let them just continue to celebrate. That's the receiver knows if they caught the football or not.
It's back to the acting coaches we got to get for Auburn. No, actually, I do think that you shouldn't have to survive the ground. I think that the football move should be a little bit more in depth. So I personally, Will Ogburn, would kind of lean more towards the things that happened in this game. However, the opposite happened against my team, so I get the exact frustration you guys are dealing with. I will say, just to put a bow on this, I did see some great things from Auburn. I think the defense is nothing to shake a stick at. As you said, there were some moments like the Baylor game. It's like, what's going on with all these kind of yards, 20 to 20, like middle of the field? How are we doing this? Tackling is not very fundamental or like sound. Okay, well, they've cleaned a lot of that stuff up. It feels like you got to love what you saw out of the run defense. You got to love some of that leadership on defense to keep getting up off the mat after these bad calls. So I do think, like, if this was a progress year for Auburn, this was a progress game. Even if you didn't win it, you probably did enough to win this game on the road against what you just, the Heisman favorite, longtime head coach in Brent Venables, John Arbuckle, who is
Ben
getting into
Arbuckle.
Oh, sorry, Ben Arbuckle.
John
You're right.
Mateer, Ben Arbuckle
Yes,
combined into one person these days. I understand what you're saying.
I've fused them, yes, but Ben Arbuckle is one of the preeminent minds in offensive game planning. We've seen that he's able to know the rule book to this level to create something out of nothing that was there last year for Oklahoma. You know what I'm saying? Like, it takes a big turnaround to be able to coach, especially at that age, to be able to coach this new group of guys to be effective in offense when last year they weren't. So I think there's a lot of positive things to say about both of these teams, even if the overall conversation between fans is very hateful and spiteful right now. That's the SEC, baby. Welcome to it.
New rivalry, Auburn-Oklahoma. It's had some juice these first 2 years. Two great games to start off in SEC play, both of which have gone the way of the Sooners. All right, well, South Carolina, Mizzou. I've got a take for you. LaNorris Sellers played in this game, got through concussion protocol during the week. We had said in the preview pod, we don't know how this is going to play out. We're recording this, Wednesday morning when we're doing this stuff, and he's got to be able to practice. And then sure enough, he's able to practice, and he's able to play in this game. My take is that this was the best game that LaNorris Sellers has played since Clemson last year. And South Carolina still lost by 2 scores. And that sucks. That sucks for Shane Beamer. And you could see it all over his face. I said going into this one that I didn't know that it mattered who was back there for South Carolina based on how bad this offense has been in the early days of the Mike Shula era, which I'm not assuming Shane Beamer is going to fire an OC a la Oklahoma before November. But let's just say I've got that one pinned. I respected how much this Mizzou defense has played well and looked the part so far. So I came into this saying, guys, I think Mizzou's just going to dominate no matter who South Carolina puts out there. On second thought, it mattered that LaNorris Sellers was back there. Yeah. He can do things nobody can. Simply put, he can do things that nobody can in college football. And he can also take a devastating sack that pushes you out of range of a touchdown when you're up 2, and a touchdown would totally change the complexion of how Mizzou wants to be able to play. And instead you've got to settle for a field goal to make it 17-12. And then you realize, why did LaNorris Sellers take this devastating sack? This sucks. I hate that this played out. But mostly in this game, even with him not running much at all, like I don't even think he had a rushing attempt until the second half of this one. He was darn good, man. Like, I know that shouldn't be the first takeaway. We're getting Mizzou fans. I will get to you, I promise. But the problem is obvious. If you can't,
it's everything else. We figured it out,
dude. It is. If you can't run the ball at all or stop the run, Superman could
have a bad time. You're just gonna have a rough. Your coach's face is gonna be very red by the end of the game.
He's gonna look exasperated. I don't know how many teams in the history of football have won when they have suffered a 285 to -9 rushing yards disadvantage.
That sounds made up. The fact that they were close in this game is so shocking because that is the biggest single advantage I've seen in an SEC game this year.
It's 290 to 37 in sack adjusted rushing yards, which I always like to bring up. But man,
when the other quarterback's LaNorris Sellers, it's almost like it doesn't make it any better. It's like you could fall forward for 3 yards to carry. How did you do this?
Golly. Yeah, South Carolina's running backs, 11 carries for 19 yards. Nobody outside of Sellers had the longest run for South Carolina was 7 yards. And South Carolina's running backs, their longest run was 6 yards. That's just not going to get it done. Not going to get it done on the road. And I found myself feeling bad for Sellers in some ways because, and then also not as much in others, because Pete Thamel reported on Saturday morning, they had this ESPN poll of 25 scouts and execs in the NFL. And Sellers led the way as the top projected quarterback in the 2026 NFL draft. Not necessarily earth-shattering, but even amidst his start, I wonder when those data points came out or when these people were contacted. I do wonder about that. But nonetheless, if you were skeptical of that going into Saturday night, you watched LaNorris Sellers play football and realized, oh yeah, a lot of this stuff is going to translate at the next level, especially when he gets a free play. Which if he's starting to figure that out, like his two best throws of the night were on free plays, and just masterful. They'll be all over his draft film. The one on the right sideline was just insane. I mean, I make of that all that what you will, because he's going to have millions and millions of dollars. He already has millions and millions of dollars, and he's maybe in a rough situation in South Carolina. But I was glad that LaNorris Sellers, even in a loss, a game in which Mizzou absolutely deserved to win and did some great things, I was glad that we got reminders of why LaNorris Sellers is special.
Connor, I feel like I saw a video game come to reality in that game because he made the exact play that dozens of people have made against me online with South Carolina and CFP 26. I've screamed at my television and almost thrown something where he's like drifting to the left and he throws the ball across his body and the guy tiptoes it going out of bounds. And you're like, what you this isn't Cam Newton. He can't do this in real life. He did exactly that in real life. It was like watching a grenade jump in Halo 3 happen in real life. I was like, oh, maybe they got that one right. I'm sorry, Electronic Arts. But on the next play you talked about, he took the bad sack. I think this is just so indicative of everything we've talked about with LaNorris Sellers. I know, hey, we've already talked about this as a boring takeaway, but this is the most important player in the SEC this year. The offense is going to go exactly where he goes. If he can't run the football, guess what? The offense is not going to be able to run the football. If LaNorris Sellers can't make you respect the run with his legs, he's going to have to throw for 1 billion yards. He had 300 yards today, which for him is not exactly how he wants to play football. It just comes down to him having to make these great plays over and over and over again. And in an environment where we've seen Anthony Richardson go as high as he has, I think this one's at least a little bit more deserving.
Different player.
Right. Yeah. But I'm saying like that was all potential. People are going to jump up and down about that with LaNorris Sellers. My guy's better. Haven't you seen my guy? It's about the amount of work that's put on him. It's the amount of responsibility. It's about the fact that he has to make decisions on every play that decide if they're going to win or lose. Yeah, that's every quarterback to a degree. But your quarterback probably isn't doing what he's doing, because if he just has a bad day at the office, they look like the worst team in the SEC. And if he has a good day at the office, it's like this guy's unstoppable. And I think we saw both on display against Mizzou when he was fully just had a gun to his head, like, you got to win this game. We're not giving you anything.
I also think maybe the fact that he was coming off of the concussion last week and they clearly wanted to curb his rushing attempts, I wonder if that helped him with some of these plays that he was making, because Mizzou, I don't think had these horrible lapses over the course of this game where they were just letting him do whatever he wanted. And it wasn't like they were unprepared for him. I mean, he was making some big time throws, man. And yeah, I like how we talked about last year. We got to see this different version of DJ Lagway when he had the hamstring apparatus on, and all of a sudden he's making these high degree of difficulty throws that just make you go, wow, this guy is really special. Look at what he's doing when he's having to focus so specifically on this part of his game. And he doesn't want to turn to his legs to kind of get out of a given situation. But yeah, LaNorris Sellers still good. I wish for his sake that his surroundings got better.
Mizzou. I'll say really quick too, it is even something. Well, again, Mizzou, you should have beaten this team by much more than you did. It was just LaNorris Sellers. So, like, I think they outplayed South Carolina to a ton. We'll get to this. I'm not saying this Mizzou's fault. I'm saying that, the results of this didn't even indicate how dominant they were. That being said, I think from a quarterback standpoint, how many times have we seen quarterbacks like, Jalen Milroe not listen to the game plan and use their legs anyway because they don't want to listen to what their OC has to say? So I even want to say, like, within the context of this, not taking the bad hit, not going outside of the course of the offense is something to be admired from Sellers, even if it didn't work out. So anyway, on to Mizzou, enough giving him his flowers.
Yeah, Will Levis struggled with that too, with Rich Gangarello as his OC, and that was a failed experiment in so many different ways. But just the game plan, like this isn't what I had in mind at all, and you end up having to default to things that you didn't necessarily have to default to a season earlier. And you see the difference. I just think that the surroundings and coordinator makes such a difference, even with guys that are immensely talented like that. Bo Perbula's got better surroundings than LaNorris Sellers, and I'm not breaking any news by saying that. I'm just not. He's got
They're so fun, dog. Mizzou is so fun this year.
I'm telling you, like, if the average fan has not had a chance to watch Mizzou yet, watch Mizzou in a given week. If your team's on bye next week or something like that, or is Mizzou on bye next week? Watch them in the Alabama game. Watch them in the Alabama game. They got UMass coming up next week. Ryan Bamford. We never sleep on that. But watch this team play football, because I think they've got a solid defense, an emerging quarterback in Bo Perbula, and they've got the best running back in college football in Ahmad Hardy. He is the best running back in college football, pound for pound, whatever. I was glad we brought up beforehand how he had the 29 missed tackles forced. I thought that PFF changed it to 28, whatever. I don't know why they do that, but nobody else in college football had more than 24 going into week 4. I don't know how many missed tackles that guy forced on Saturday night. I didn't get that official number yet, but it felt like he had another 29. It really did. His touchdown run was the stuff of legend. Did you see this play, Will, where his back, and I tweeted this, of where his back was after Dylan Stewart, I don't want to say he had him dead to rights. He had a very clean angle on him. That's an All-American that's got a chance to be able to make a play and stop this for no gain, essentially. And he has his back to the pile at the 4-yard line. I don't know the percentage of guys who have ever turned that exact sequence into positive yards, much less a touchdown. And what does Ahmad Hardy do? He finds a way to bounce it out, somehow work through it, runs over a guy at the goal line, and he's in. And you're just going, who is this guy? Because it's unfathomable what he's doing. And I know that it's the Mizzou running back thing. And so he's going to get put into this box, understandably so. The zone running scheme, the offensive line, what they have been able to build with Eli Drinkowitz, with Kirby Moore, you just kind of set it and forget it at this point. And so it's going to take away from some of what Ahmad Hardy's doing, but it shouldn't. This guy's going to run away with the SEC rushing title. Like, run away, no challengers, lock it up in the bag, like Dylan Sampson last year, like Cody Schrader the year before. He's going to have it locked up. As long as he is healthy, he is going to have it locked up by week 8, okay? Like, I feel confident about that guy. After he had 4 consecutive 100-yard games to start the season, second player ever to do that at Mizzou. The only power conference running back in the same neighborhood as him in terms of rushing yards going into this one, Justice Haynes. Yeah. I never stop believing, Justice Haynes. Never stop believing.
Sounds like you were right. Yeah, I mean, you know, why we should just cancel that segment that we have that's like, let's pick the leading rusher in the SEC, because
Didn't we settle on him, though? Didn't we end up settling on Ahmad Hardy?
we did, and the answer is whoever Mizzou's got somebody back there. And
Last year it didn't work.
No,
It didn't
I know,
work last year.
but again, like, look at the two guys kind of betwixt them. Look at the two columns between them, where it's like you found two random guys that just made it happen. The SEC was just weird. A lot of running backs got hurt last year. You know, Dylan Sampson did kind of, but I think Josh Heupel's right there. I think he's the next guy you pick. He just happened to have the guy that year. So yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, the more things change, the more they stay the same. And with Mizzou, it's like if you get a guy that's this talented and he's getting the Larry Roundtree like carries, it is a huge problem. It is all you need, really, especially in college football, where, okay, the scheme is there, the blocking is there, and you have the X factor to go win one-on-one. Talk about Dylan Stewart. Yeah, he's an All-American. He's also just an NFL player, right? That's the type of stuff that you talk about scouts want to see at the next level. It's like you can go one-on-one in kind of the hole versus a guy like that and win and make a positive, like, impact for your team. So yeah, it's the how did we let Mizzou get this type of situation, where they're on the upswing, you know, and Mizzou hasn't exactly had the coming down moment yet, but everything is going their way right now, man. And it's just, this right here is like the most drink team of all time. It's so great to see.
It kind of is. That's what it's turning into. Ahmad Hardy's pace right now, Will, it's 4 games. So I realize it's very, very early. His 4-game pace, which will drop off, is currently for 1,950 yards, which is essentially 2015 Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, we don't throw that comparison around lightly.
Famous fall off, but one that it feels like almost anyone. Mike Shula probably could have managed it better than LSU did. I mean, it really takes something special to not finish that year.
Leonard Fournette did things that season that will still go viral every once in a while, just because people need to remember how impressive it was, some of those runs. Some of the plays
the remaining Auburn fans on the pod have just left us bad reviews. They're like, why are we doing this?
Auburn fans, we did right by you, Auburn fans. Like, we did right by you. Some of the plays Ahmad Hardy's making, they're not that far off from what Leonard Fournette did. I am not saying that he is Leonard Fournette 2.0. I am not saying that, but just keep all of this in mind as this unfolds, because this guy is playing at such a high level right now. We need to be talking about him. It blows me away to think that this guy went to Louisiana Monroe. It was his only offer. If Columbia Daily Tribune did a story on him coming into the season in August, because they kind of sense like this guy's going to be a stud for Mizzou. And his backstory is very unique. Like, he grew up in a trailer park and had, you know, a single mother who, like, just didn't, they weren't necessarily in position to like get him out to all these different camps. He was so lightly recruited coming out. Like the fact that he had one offer from Louisiana Monroe, had like a 3.6 GPA in high school. You can even see his Twitter bio and it says that. And this guy is just
You see a GPA in the Twitter bio for an
I
SEC
love
player,
that.
run. That is a guy who's been through the war. You don't want to see
Right?
that guy in the open field.
Yeah, but like I've developed very quickly an appreciation for watching him play, and Ahmad Hardy is becoming appointment viewing, man. He is just so awesome to watch, and just picked the perfect place for him. Well, let's talk big picture Mizzou for a second. You were talking about this, like this is just the perfect drink team. It might have seemed like we were doing a lot of crowning post Kansas win for Mizzou. It's going to be 5-0 going into that Bama game in week 7. And yes, it's weird that Mizzou has these 6 home games to start the season. First FBS program since 1985 to have that. They brought that up on the broadcast. Wild. Truly is wild. The schedule.
Again, we get these new teams coming in. Okay, Oklahoma, Texas, are we going to get special treatment? Georgia, again, it's like we have no home night games. Alabama's like, what's going on? Mizzou is like, we're just God's favorite son. I don't know what to tell you. We get the great schedule twice, and that's the SEC agenda, is to boost up Mizzou. They call us.
Yeah, what a break. It's worked out very, very well. There's definitely still a part of me that wonders if this ground attack will have a different type of challenge on the road against teams like Auburn and Oklahoma when those trips come. Like, I respect those defensive lines. Obviously, we just said really good things about them. But I do wonder more and more if Mizzou can get to 10 wins and maybe a playoff berth for well, it wouldn't be a playoff berth for the 3rd consecutive season, but if Mizzou can have a 10-win season for the 3rd consecutive year, I think that's really on the table. And if you're doubting the pedigree, like Drink is 25-5 in his last 30 games since the start of 2023. In that stretch, 17-5 against power conference competition. He's 17-1 at home. There are so many programs across this sport, Clemson, who are searching for that type of consistency right now, including a Florida team that we're going to get to in a second. And Drink has it at Mizzou. And he has it in part because he changed his play caller and decided to bring in Kirby Moore, which is something that Billy Napier should have done a couple of years ago. But they have it, and they have a clear identity. Mizzou is just going to be a nightmare to play for some of these teams in the latter half of the schedule.
Yeah, it's like Drink is that guy. It's almost like he doesn't really want to fully come up. It's like, okay, when they were great a couple of years ago, they had Schrader. They leaned on him. He was heart and soul of the team. They lose him, and they still have the great receivers. They still have Brady Cook, and it's like they'll be just fine. It's like, no, he wanted his kind of like gritty guy. Those guys leave, and suddenly we've got this like kind of, honestly, it's a 3-headed rushing attack. And I'd say this, like maybe
Roberts
someone will
too. Yeah,
right, like somebody you might stop Ahmad Hardy. Go ahead and stop Jamal Roberts. Okay, now you got to go ahead and stop Prabula, and not just as a runner, but as a scrambler. And so, like, Mizzou's rushing offense is the most, like, concrete thing to me because it's like, hey, again, Ahmad Hardy gets a turf toe. Are we cooked? No. That was the case with a Larry Roundtree or a guy like that or a Schrader where it's like if you don't have this guy, we're cooked. Okay, again, let's slide Jamal Roberts up. Let's do a little bit more reoption. Now they are starting to protect Bo Prabula a little bit more, like we talked about. And they had 200-yard rushers against Kansas. So I am just so fired up because it looks like he wanted to race in the crappy car. It's like that was his vibe. He wanted to do a fixer-upper. You give him the Ferrari, the finesse football team, he's going to put it in the wall because he's used to his old beater. But you give him this style of team that's getting after the passer, blitzing, tackles for loss. They're making it gritty. Like, that's the style of game that he wants to win. He doesn't want to have 400 passing yards and have the QB posted on Instagram by halftime,
Well, there was a play in this game, and you talk about all the different elements of this ground game that you have to respect and how difficult that is. There's a play in this game where with that zone running scheme and how slow developing it can be, the patience that's needed just to be able to get guys to be able to set their blocks and all these different things that go into it. And Prabula, instead of handing it off, and it looked like it was by design to do this play, the entire South Carolina defense is just trying to do whatever it can to be able to stop the run. I don't know if it was Roberts or Hardy that was in the backfield, whoever it was. And essentially, Bo Prabula gets this naked boot, and he's got the entire side of the field open, and he cuts it up like that. And with all due respect to Brady Cook, who ends up being one of the best quarterbacks in program history at Mizzou, that was the type of play that last year Brady Cook couldn't make. And the presence that Mizzou has established with this backfield has opened up those possibilities that the second it opens up, the chain gang is already moving the chains. They already know that's a first down. Bo Prabula's explosion is just there. It's evident. And that scheme, that's personnel working to a T And a talented team like South Carolina, or at least a team that has talented guys on it, but maybe lacks the depth that it would like to be able to have in a game like that, can't really do a whole lot about that. Like, obviously, you'd like them to be more disciplined in that moment, but this team has a lot of different ways it can beat you. And again, I encourage people to watch Mizzou, AP voters as well. Watch Mizzou play football, and you'll come away thinking this team is pretty darn good. And it takes spectacular throws like what LaNorris Sellers did in this game to even feel like you have a chance. And South Carolina very much had a chance to win this one, had a lead late, and played much better than I thought they were going to. Mizzou still bordering on inevitable at this point with the things that they are doing well.
Yeah, and let me like kind of grab that point and like transition it too, which is like, I just realized it's almost like the whole time he had Brady Cook, he was trying to turn him into this version of Bo Prabula. Like, remember the Vanilla Vic Brady Cook, where he against Arkansas, where he was taking like 20 carries. You're like, why are you doing this to Brady Cook? This isn't him. Whereas that comes more naturally to Bo Prabula. It's easier for him to turn that guy into a passer than it is for him to not have a QB run option, which it seems like he really wants. Now, that being said, this is the second game in a row for South Carolina, unfortunately, you're Muffet South Carolina fans, that we have looked at a team that you could say you should probably have a talent advantage over, right? Vanderbilt, Mizzou. You look up and you're going, this looks like this team just kind of beat you across the board again.
Well, this is what I feared with this team. It's 2022 Alabama. You can feel really good about having these aliens. Alabama had Bryce Young and Will Anderson. It had the best player in football on the offensive side of the ball. It had the best returning player in football on the defensive side of the ball. That Alabama team was very close to being unanimous preseason number one, in large part because of those two things, and because, well, when Alabama only misses one national championship game in a 7-year stretch from 2015 to 2021, that type of thing happens, and there's confirmation bias in that. That Alabama team, which also had Jahmyr Gibbs on it too, ended up having more holes than we thought it was going to, and it was easy to overlook them because of the star power that it had. The South Carolina team had star power. It has become very evident in these first 4 games that they have a lot of other areas of weakness, most notably offensive line, most notably a running game that has just not been there the way that they need it to be able to withstand the gauntlet that awaits with this schedule. And that's the troubling thing for South Carolina, and why this felt more to me like a 7-5 team coming into the year. I'm not saying that's like pat myself on the back or anything like that. There could be better days ahead for this team, but you're seeing some of the holes with this 0-2 start to SEC play.
But luckily, if you're South Carolina, you look at the schedule and you see the most beautiful port in the storm ahead of you. That's right, home versus Kentucky. If your roster doesn't look better than Kentucky's, buddy, you got to really get scared. So this was the game that came alive last year. They just needed to have this game sooner this year. They did. So that's the key. Let's keep it positive here. You will be the better team on the field, hopefully, next week, and you're going to need it, because then you've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ranked teams in a row. So we're going to need to see that second and third tier of South Carolina player really step up, because that's really been the difference in these last two, especially with LaNorris Sellers is playing well. It's still not enough.
Would be a good time for the climate versus culture debate that is had between South Carolina and Kentucky to go the way of South Carolina. We'll say that. True. All right, well, let's close with some of the ugly action that we got on Saturday night at Miami. This depressed me so much. This depressed me in a lot of different ways. And
not me. I was laughing.
Heel. Watching this version of DJ Lagway play football in Billy Napier's offense, I put that in air quotes, it depresses me. It is a tough watch. I know that Florida had a chance to win this one in the fourth quarter, finally showed some life out of the break, picked off Carson Beck. Don't be triggered, Georgia fans. He did this for Miami. Got a chance to be able to pick up a 4th and 3 in a 13-7 game with all the momentum, and the receiver just runs a route short of the sticks. A very classic Florida mistake in the Billy Napier era to make. And it's just all Miami from that point on. And that was the last chance that Florida had to win this game. Well, I want to give you some stats for Florida's offense of what unfolded on Saturday night. And you tell me, as a fan who has had to withstand some tough offensive moments at times for your team, not just this year, but I'm talking about in years past, you tell me which is the one that as a fan, you go, oh my God, I need a barf bucket. Because there's many.
Let me put on my listening ears. Okay, I'm ready to go.
32 yards of offense in the first half. Oof, that's bad. 141 total yards of offense in this game. Fewest in a game that Florida's had since 1999. Yeah.
Second half team.
Yeah, clearly they had a whole, what was it? Let me do some quick math. 109 yards of total offense in the second half.
There you go.
Practically a juggernaut. 0 for 13 on third down. First time that's happened for Florida since 1998.
I'm glad you brought that up. I actually feel like it should be longer considering some of the Florida offenses we've seen, because usually at least they can play offense. That's a shocker.
But Florida's got the longest streak without getting shut out as well. That's what you got to remember. Although this last one also kind of shades of that. This was the first time that Florida has scored 10 points or less in consecutive weeks since 1989, the George H.W. Bush administration. Which one of those stats is the most, oh my God, I'm going to be sick. I at the very least need to lie down.
Yeah, I think the points. I think the first half yardage is just something, and I'll throw another one in there.
Yeah.
61 total passing yards for DJ Lagway is just
on 22 attempts. It was, I think.
Yeah, 23. Yeah, I'm looking at it
23.
right now. That is there's a lot to appreciate, a lot to take in for this game.
And it's all bad. It's all bad. And I do feel bad for Florida's defense, but this offense is a bad hang. It's just a terrible, no good, awful, bad hang.
We'll stop talking about crypto.
Oh, it's
fantasy
awful.
football. They're talking about their moves they made in the roster.
You're getting one up to every other sentence you're trying to get in. It's awful, man. Like Jaden Baugh doesn't get the ball enough, and I get mad watching that. It's pretty remarkable to see what he can do when he actually gets the football. The running he had on that touchdown. Jaden Baugh's a good football player, Billy Napier. Just letting you know in case you forget this every single Saturday. I get mad that DJ Lagway hasn't developed. I get mad that he doesn't look healthy. And I get mad that he plays in a predictable offense that never fools anyone. I could handle one of those three things being true. But all three at the same time is it is a massive bummer because this team has a real defense and it feels like we're watching 2024 Oklahoma. That's what this feels like. At this point, does DJ Lagway look like 2024 Jackson Arnold? Less mobile,
more injured. Yeah. And I mean, again, like the receivers, I think are just fine. It's just hard to get a rhythm. Like that's the thing that's so weird.
You're not going to get separation with what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, they can't get anything going. It's bad.
Dude, he needs to have a mobile quarterback. It's the same thing. They need to fall forward 3 and 4 yards. And it's like, he's trying to make this weird, like if they took Jaden Baugh and lined him up a quarterback and said, we're going to run Wildcat for this whole game, it would probably have gone better than this.
What Oklahoma did by putting him in Michael Hawkins Jr. last year instead of Jackson
Literally. Like not using DJ Lagway is honestly like go put in some non-talented guy that you just throw screens with. And like, because that worked against LSU. At least I could give you, I literally said, I like their game plan against LSU. DJ Lagway just was scared. They lost that against Miami.
When he had the 4th and 2 pickup where he gets to the pylon and he stretches the ball out, I had this moment of blacking out where I thought to myself, oh yeah, DJ Lagway should run the football a whole lot more. Oh yeah, they don't want to do that because clearly he's not healthy and clearly they don't want to make this a part of the offense. And you see the mechanics on some of his throws that just have to be completed and it's just not there. It's so bad. I think Florida's offense is going to get Doring to drop an F-bomb on SEC final. I think the FCC is coming after Doring. They've got it circled. They know all these things. I was texting Doring about this because people like don't know this. And I've explained this maybe a couple of times on the pod. He is the single best person I've ever seen it in TV at flipping the switch when the camera comes on to not curse. Like Doring can curse like a sailor, like if you're just having a regular conversation with him, and then that camera turns on and it's like, I'm buttoned up, I'm good to go. I'm not going to let anything slip like that. And he is a pro through and through. He's going to get so mad watching this offense that he's going to lose it. He is going to lose it, and I see it all over his face. And I'm like, I'll text with Florida people watching a game, and I feel it in their texts. It's the worst hang. Like it is the single worst hang in the SEC this year is Florida's offense.
It's so inexplicable. Like I'm truly, it's inexplicable. Like, we talked about this years ago, not even really true today, funny enough, but like when Sam Pittman struggled with the offensive line, it's like, how do you do that? That's the one thing you're supposed to be good at. If you had told me Billy Napier is going to fail spectacularly at Florida, how is he going to do it? It's like, oh yeah, defense is giving up 50 games. Feels like Dan Mullen versus Sanford. They're going to be slinging the rock across the yard.
Sure.
It's going to be fun, but it's going to be pointless because we're all going to know. It's going to be like, 2023 LSU. It's like, oh, why are we all here doing this? Like, you can't get a stop. This defense held strong against like a Miami team that's looked awesome for basically like 3 quarters. And I mean, you talked about it. Was it 0 of 13 on third down? You get to fourth down, and they started 3 of 3. It's like you have the ability to drop one good play. You have the ability to fall forward. You have the ability to make this easier on your quarterback, and you choose to not do it. And going to another SEC network guy, it's funny. It just look at the vein size on Doring. He's keeping everything in, and his vein is just growing. You hear his heartbeat through the monitor. But Cole Kubelik made a really good point about Joey Aguilar with us last week, where it's not just about knowing the offense. It's about having the timing and what you put on the ball, how you throw the ball. Like throwing a ball like that's 5 yards, don't throw it hard. DJ Lagway throws every ball 100 miles an hour, and the offense has routes that go 5 yards.
Well, it's a good point, and it's why I have so much more respect for Joey Aguilar, knowing that DJ Lagway got this offseason that just did not work out in his favor. Wasn't able to throw the football until obviously, spring camp was already over. And I don't ever want to hear about mental reps from a quarterback ever again, especially the JJ McCarthy stuff. If I can mute mental reps on all my social media, I will mute them. That is the next thing that I need to mute, because I don't give a flying what about mental reps when it comes to that position. You can see it, that there is, like, what Joey Aguilar has done so unbelievably well at Tennessee is figure out his playmakers are, figure out how they get the ball in space, figure out how Chris Brazzell is going to be able to track down a deep ball, like all these different things that he has picked up on at a world-class rate. And DJ Lagway, we talked about this so much. The learning curve was going to be so steep to get on the same page with a lot of new receivers, and to do so knowing that he's going to be clearly working through some things physically, whatever those are, I don't know. But there is just such a difference in watching these guys play. And obviously the Heupel, Joey Halsey thing, like that's part of it as well. And they're so much different than Billy Napier as a schemer. But man, it's just terrible. It's just terrible. And it might get worse. It might get worse because all the tough games are out of the way, right? No. They play Texas next. Texas might have the best defense in the country. And then they got to go to College Station to face Mike Elko. When is this getting better?
It's no USF idea. And a version of Brian Kelly that was ready to get canceled by the media. He was so upset, and you guys couldn't even do that. And like, I'd say it like this: this is the most arrogant thing I've ever said. But it's like, guys, at this point in your offense, tell your two good receivers to run straight. Tell Jaden Ball to run a swing route, and then just do something in the middle, and then you're going to be better. Because if you're not going to take some of that cheese off the ball, at least throw it deep. If you know your quarterback at least is going to go 100 miles an hour, at least take 5 deep shots per drive and make them cover it. It's maddening.
But then you got Ruben Bain, who's probably just going to just mow DJ Lagway down and just get a clean shot on him. And that guy's awesome, by the way. Ruben Bain is so freaking good. Mario Cristobal has built a team that Billy Napier wishes he had. It's as simple as that. And I wasn't willing to say that in the preseason. I wasn't willing to say that when Kevin Clark came on the show. But it is so obvious watching that game. Miami won that game, and Carson Beck didn't have to do anything.
I would argue he played poorly. Honestly, this was kind of looked like Georgia Carson's back, and it didn't matter.
He really, that throw that he had that was picked off was a really nice play in the secondary. But again, he's kind of throwing off the wrong foot. He's like stepping up in the pocket, probably not enough juice to be able to make that pass. They should turn the ground game, turn the offensive line, just lean on him. And that offensive line is really good. And Carson Beck almost feels like an 80s quarterback right now, who's just going to get too much credit for not doing that much. And there will be
the logos are perfect, right? He needs to start wearing like a flak jacket with the tearaway jerseys. He'd fit right in.
Yeah, little. If we want to go 70s quarterback, go look up Terry Bradshaw's first 5 years in Pittsburgh and tell me that guy would have survived in this media landscape in this day and age. No, that guy would have been back home in Louisiana and probably not playing football if he was in this landscape with the patience that he got, because he had such great defense and Franco Harris and all those things. But Mario Cristobal outscoring Billy Napier 67-24 in 2 years will be part of the Billy Napier eulogy, obituary, all the above.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the ones where it's like, hey, if a team loses, I feel a responsibility as an SEC, personality here to at least say the positives here. I really have no reason to be nice to Miami. I feel like Miami could have been had on this day, but I feel like they were just, again, a more fundamentally sound team.
They're good in the trenches, man.
They're awesome.
They're really good in the trenches.
Yeah,
I'll give them that.
I will be nice to him, like, on that level where I said, we don't really know about Florida's, run defense. And I think that until, again, this is one where the final score and these stats are not going to tell the story because they really were defensively doing some things that you really liked against Miami and their trenches held up. Again, like, it would have been funnier if they showed up and their guys were just frauds and we were wrong about Florida's guys. No, like, this defense is bought in. So, yeah, I mean, credit to Miami for having that gritty win. Again, we saw a little bit of the Jordan Carson Beck, a little bit of the LSU CJ Daniels as well, and some of the passes out there. We didn't see this unbeatable Miami team. Same as LSU last week. We saw a team that was willing to give it away, and Florida just said, no, that's all good. So, yeah, I'm fascinated by where we go from here. Maybe this isn't the time to bring up the Jabbar Jaluk thing, but that's one of the strangest things I've ever seen, how a guy could just slap a player and remain employed. It's just everywhere you look for Florida, there's some wild thing happening. And it's like you started off with, you're always looking across the aisle at your rivals. You remember the thing with Mario Cristobal where they didn't know how to kneel the ball. And to go from here, like from there to here, where it's like they've cleaned up everything. They brought in transfers, they took chances, and it worked. And Florida's just still about where they were with Graham Mertz, and it just sucks.
Magnified when the teams in your state look so much better than you. Florida State and Florida. I don't know if they're
USF.
Going to USF as well. God, how can I forget
Fourth best
that?
team in Florida. I mean, how can you argue against it?
Yeah. I don't know if a decision will be made on Billy Napier's future before then. I assume that it will be made before then and those two teams play. But if Miami and Florida State are playing for an ACC championship, we're not ruling out Georgia Tech. We never disrespect Haynes King. But if those teams are playing for an ACC championship and Florida's sitting there like 2-5, bad news bears. All right, well, let's close a couple of early week 5 thoughts.
I'm so excited. Going forward, man, this next week's going to be so fire.
It will be. And I think for week 5, Arch Manning is going to be in timeout because he celebrated so hard on that same Houston State guy.
Yeah. Like I said, water finds its level. Arch Manning will find the competition he can stun on. They may not be in the SEC, but he'll find them.
I'm a little bit torn on that. I didn't expect to have moments like that from Arch Manning. And I listened to Chase Daniel, who was on the broadcast for this one, talk about the way that Arch felt like he was getting his swagger back during the week. I know I've kind of poked fun at that already, but about how some of the things that he was doing in practice needed a little bit of a mental reset after just a really bad start. And so he's had a few of these moments this year in these lesser games where you're just like, weight off the shoulder. He feels better. He had one of these moments against San Jose State after the defense like forced a turnover or had a pick 6 or something like that. And it's like, this guy's working through some stuff. I think if you take away nothing from that play, he's very clearly working through some stuff and he's not quite as invincible as we thought. We can very safely say that kind of regardless of how you felt about that moment. That's evident. He's not going to be in timeout from like a suspension. Texas is just on bye. And then they've got the Florida game, by the way. So Florida is on bye as well. And then Texas after that. I'm hoping to be at that one in the Swamp. TBD on that. Might have to get a couple of things figured out, but maybe I will be there to see Arch Manning, DJ Lagway in the battle of Heisman hopefuls who
could have been
say,
house. There might still be house for Arch Manning.
Not so much. I have a bold prediction for week 5, Will. You ready for this?
What's that?
Clemson's not going to lose in week 5. Lock of the week.
Yeah, bye week.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, they'll find a way. They'll find Dabo's hard drive or something.
Can you imagine if Dabo loses to Belichick coming off the bye to fall to 0-3 in ACC play and 1-4 overall? It can't happen, right?
Well, this has turned so much into the NFL. Look, Bill Belichick's on the other sideline. We got a cap manager as a head coach with his girlfriend. I would actually love that.
The only bad take about Clemson so far, which thank you, Dave Portnoy, for saying Dabo. They would be lost without Dabo, and that Clemson fans don't realize how good they have it. I'm sure they really respected that. The only bad take about Clemson is people saying that Clemson needs to embrace NIL. That's factually incorrect. Clemson has embraced NIL. Clemson had the first NIL standalone building on campus of any school in America. Cade Klubnik is staying at Clemson because of NIL. Their offensive line, their receivers, like they stay intact because of NIL. They're not just sitting here going, NIL is stupid, and we're not going to give guys money.
No. And I could say this as the guy who's from the chicken finger town. When you're in Clemson, South Carolina, going to town is Greenville, South Carolina. That's your big deal in the NIL era. It's not that you haven't bought in. It's that you got the horses of like an Atlanta or an Austin behind you.
Well, no, but they still are paid handsomely. Like that the take that Clemson hasn't embraced NIL is like just factually incorrect.
No, I know.
They
I'm just
very
saying
much
you'd have to pay him way more to go like play for Dabo and be part of that. Like when their team's really giving out top level money, if you're gonna still be stuck in the past, you got to be giving out like that level checks. And they don't have that.
Yeah, but like their roster's paid well. Like the roster's paid very, very well. It's embracing the portal and understanding that there is
Finding
a
Ahmad
certain
Hardy.
standard.
It's the stuff that they used to be good at that they're not anymore. Actually, that's a really good point. It's where are the 3-stars that used to be good for Clemson? Yeah.
Yeah. How much do they wish that they could have Ahmad Hardy right now? I think Clemson fans, $5 million would you pay for that guy for the rest of the season? Oh, it doesn't matter if we don't have an offensive line that can block for him. I'd argue maybe Ahmad Hardy, even with a bad offensive line, could still be pretty special. So that's my bold take for week 5. Bama Georgia is going to be great. I'm so excited to be able to talk about that one. I know we already got a take from Cole on that as well. That's going to be the premier matchup. And then sneaky good LSU Ole Miss as well. Trinidad Chambliss. I'm just saying he's got to be starting, right? He's Austin Simmons.
Man.
I saw the quote from the Rebel Walk about Lane. Lane was basically asked about it afterwards, and he said something to the effect of, he did a really good job of not turning the ball over in the first quarter in consecutive weeks. Direct shot, Austin Simmons. Direct shot, right? I think the Austin Simmons era, even as a guy who loved Austin Simmons coming into the year, I think he's in the back seat. I think he's chilling. I don't think Lane is making this move because if you're thinking long term of, well, you can't make this move because then you risk losing a guy like that. Lane's doing this with a Division II guy. He'll just pick up anybody. He doesn't care. But
yeah,
he
truly is.
That stuff.
Talking about getting a discount, that's a guy that historically, like, quarterbacks will take a discount or we'll go listen to what Lane Kiffin has to say. That's the X factor. And his evals have been awesome. And like I say this, like, you know, Austin Simmons, we talked about in the preseason, he was this young guy. He was a football genius. He was all this. This just goes to show, like, look at the model of quarterback that's worked for Lane Kiffin. It's a little bit of a Chad. It's a little bit of Jackson Dart. It's a little bit of Matt Corral, where it's like, hey, I'm going to sling that thing. I'm going to figure it out later. Whereas, like, Austin Simmons is doing the calculus and everything. Trinidad Chambliss is like, this is my shot, bro. My back's against the wall. I don't care if I turn this ball over. I got a ball right now. And that's what Lane wants. He wants a guy who's not scared.
Do you know Trinidad's dad's name?
Trinidad Granddad?
His dad's name is Trent.
Trent and Trinidad. That is so
How do you
electric.
go from Trent to Trinidad? How is there not multiple disciples of Trinidad's? It's an incredible name. And for a guy named Trent to be at least part of the decision-making process of going, you know what we need is a Trinidad. That's awesome.
Well, he wanted to be Trina's son. I'm sure the mom overruled him. He's like, fine, Trinidad's the thing I can name him and not get in trouble. We got to see, is his GPA in his bio on Twitter? We got to get him on the podcast ASAP.
I don't think
before
so.
He gets too big, because that guy's awesome. I love Trinidad.
He's been great. They whooped on Tulane. Whooped. Oh my gosh. That was a beatdown. I was expecting to be kind of locked into that one, and very quickly was like, nah, Ole Miss kind of going to run away from this. Pete Golding, Ole Miss defense, not too shabby. Not too shabby. But be very interested to see how it plays out with your Bayou Bengals in Oxford next week. Looking forward to that one. Will, that's a pod. That'll do it. Mm-hmm. I know we only had 3 games to break down, but still an eventful week in the SEC. It was.
We found a way. Arkansas found a way. You know, we were talking about Trinidad. So, you know, the teams, I'm not going to say everybody behaved this week, but they at least gave us enough to talk about for a light week.
Always appreciated, SEC. You've been good to us. Please leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every episode of the Saturday Down South podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the STS Pod, at South Down South, at TJ Rivera, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.